Yo, it's Nin, and today I'm going to be going over some movement tech for each character currently on Deadlock's roster. I am not going to be going over basic movement fundamentals in this video, as that is boring and I do not want to, but if this video gets enough traction, I might consider making a fundamentals video. I'm going to be going alphabetical and I'll timestamp each hero, so check that if you're looking for someone specific. Some characters have very little movement tech, so I'll mention them but won't have much to say. I will also be going over some obvious stuff for some characters, so if your main isn't here and they have one well-known piece of tech, you're probably going to hear it again. Apologies, but let's get into it. Abrams is able to cancel his shoulder charge at any point during the ability and retain momentum. You can also use shoulder charge in the air to instantly redirect your direction, which can be useful for wall jumps. Shoulder charge will also override the direction of a vent, allowing you to change direction mid-air from a vent. Weirdly, as one of the more mobile characters in the game, Apollo doesn't actually have any specific movement tech. All of his movement options are pretty straightforward and easy to understand. That said, you can use parry on both Guardian and Walker, so I'll mention that and we'll move on. Apollo is also very buggy, so some people will call certain parts of his kit tech, but really they're just bugs and definitely aren't going to remain in the game. For example, he can sometimes glitch out of the map, or there was a thing with an infinite movement lock parry. Bebop has a singular piece of movement in his kit for himself, and that's the fact that his ult lets him float. However, instead, I want to talk about Bebop's anti-movement synergy. By this, I mean that Bebop can remove the movement of enemies with his hook. I think the funniest example of this is grabbing Apollo whilst he's ulting. If you do this, Apollo will attempt to ult, but won't go anywhere as he's in the Bebop hook. Most CC will cancel Apollo ult, but for some reason Bebop hook doesn't and the ult will still trigger. So if you're pulling him through your team, then watch out, because they will still get hit by his ult. However, it can definitely be very funny to grab an Apollo and stop him dashing anywhere in his ult. Billy can use his rising ram to gain vertical momentum. You used to have to jump before doing this, but it's been changed recently to allow you to do it from the ground so long as you're looking up enough. This can be used to gain height in many situations for free without costing stamina. For Calico, we're going to say basically exactly the same thing as Billy, in that leaping slash can be used to gain height, and she used to have to jump before doing this. But yeah, free height, no stamina. It's pretty good. Now, B-hopping isn't quite specific to Celeste. Technically, everyone on the cast can do it. However, she's the best user of this technique and is the only one that would ever really want to use it. But even then, she's still more of a fan of slide hopping, as are most of the cast. When it comes to B-hopping on Celeste, you want to prioritize wider strafes over CSGO's smaller, quicker strafes. This is due to Celeste not quite having 100% air control and Deadlock handling strafing ever so slightly differently from CS. So basically, you will gain more momentum from doing a slightly wider / longer strafe on Celeste than you will with the smaller ones. You also want to be super smooth with your strafing, as it's both great practice and will give you more distance. If you're struggling with strafing, then I'd recommend strafing slower rather than faster, as all that will happen is you'll gain momentum slower, whereas strafing too fast can make you lose momentum. You can also only strafe once per jump if you want to make it just that little bit easier for yourself. A quick tip for helping to practice the timing of the jumps is that if you hear the footstep sound when you jump after hitting the ground, you've done it too late and you needed to jump earlier. If you jumped too early, then you will have input a double jump rather than a regular jump. Doorman's doors have a physical hitbox, which means you can stand on them and sometimes in them. This allows Doorman players to use their doors as a ladder. If you place a door, remove it, and then replace it in a new spot, you can infinitely climb a building or move along the side of a building. Now, I'm not sure how practical this really is, but it is a fun thing Doorman can do. Doorman can also block some vents on the map with his door. This won't stop people from taking them all together, but it will redirect the velocity from the vent into a different direction as seen here. On top of this, anyone going through a Doorman door carries all their velocity, so if you can find a way to put a door after a vent to a different spot on the map, then theoretically you could get the vent boost in that other area of the map. Drifter's teleport doesn't have a distance limit. This means you can teleport from anywhere on the map so long as you either already have Stalker's mark on the enemy, or you can hit a lineup. On top of this, Drifter's teleport can be used on creeps, so there are some 100% guaranteed lineups you can practice for Drifter. Dynamo's teleport has the unique ability to teleport his teammates. This has some weird interactions. For one, it's similar to Mina's teleport in that it can be used to iframe abilities. However, as Dynamo can grab teammates, he can technically have his entire team iframe another enemy's ability or ultimate. There are some instances in which he can also pull his teammates through solid objects like walls. I'm not fully certain how this works, but in certain spots on the map, if you use the team teleport function with your teammate stood next to a wall that you are also stood next to, it will pull them into the TP and through the wall. This can be used for some clutch plays, so it's definitely worth knowing. Graves herself does not have any specific movement tag. However, her gravestone has a hitbox, but only for enemies. This means you can place it on vents or in doorways to block an enemy's movement or to stop them from following you, and it won't stop your team from using the vent or going through that door, which is really nice for juking your opponents without being a detriment to your team, unlike Doorman's doors. Grey Talon can use his trap to perform a short hop as it slows your momentum during cast. He can also cancel his jump during cast to gain a boost of vertical momentum. Worth noting for those unaware that if you alternate cast the jump, you will float lower in the air. This is one that I think every Deadlock player most likely already knows about, as it was removed recently and then added back, but if you slide on a slope whilst in Haze's ultimate, you can override the speed cap and move at your higher slide speed instead. Holliday is one of the hardest characters to play in this game and has the most freedom when it comes to learning her movement options. With this said, we're not going to be talking about any of that today, as this is a video about tech specifically, and most of Holliday's stuff is just basic movement stuff on steroids. However, I am a Holliday main, so if you want a video on Holliday movement, then comment down below, as she is by far my most played character, so I can provide that. If you want one right now, I've linked down below a video by my friend Wiz, who is a very good Holliday player and has some resources on how to play her better. Anyways, an interesting movement tech that you can perform with Holly is the wall pad. To do this, stand next to a wall and place a bounce pad. Sometimes it will place the bounce pad vertically and sometimes it won't, it will just place it below you, but either way, so long as you're not moving at all by pressing any of your directional keys, you will place a bounce pad right next to this wall, with you either stood on it or under it. If you're under it, press space, you should be teleported on top of it. This means you can then hit a wall bounce to instantly gain momentum from both the wall bounce and the bounce pad, which increases the overall momentum gain. To do this, just hit a key to move into the wall alongside the jump key at the same time and you will gain the boost from the pad and the wall bounce. Bonus tech for Holliday, as she is my main, but if you buy Warpstone and use it just as lasso is ending, you can slingshot your target across the map. This is not that useful unless you're like really low HP or really want them to be under your walker. And I would say to do this at your own risk, as many players will complain at you for throwing the enemy away and allowing them to escape. When Infernus uses Flame Dash, he takes a second to accelerate to top speed. If you input a dash just before the Flame Dash, you will start Flame Dash at top acceleration. You can also cancel the Flame Dash at any time. Sliding directly after this will carry over some of that momentum. Ivy can use Stormform to cancel out of her ult, which will instantly throw the teammate she's just picked up from her ult and will stun the enemies hit by Stoneform. This is a great way to cancel Ivy ult and catch some people off guard in the middle of a fight. That said, if you do not use ult on a teammate, then you will just cancel the ult and you won't throw a projectile. Kelvin can use his dome to hit a guaranteed corner boost if it's used in midair. So long as Kelvin uses his dome midair so that it has a floor, he can use it to hit a guaranteed corner boost off of the bottom of the dome every single time. If I'm being real with you guys, I do not think Geist has any real unique movement tech. Her ult does silence at tier 2, so you can use it to like shut down some mobile characters, I guess, but I don't know, that one kind of feels like a reach. If you're a Geist player and she has some specific movement tech that I've missed, then let me know in the comments. Zipline momentum conservation is not unique to Lash. However, he's probably the best user of it and it pairs really well with his ult, so I'm going to mention it here because it's a bit more universal but still very relevant to Lash. Essentially, ZMC is just dashing as soon as you exit the zipline through a crouch to maintain the momentum from the zipline. This can be used to move in the direction you were moving whilst casting Lash ult, allowing for a moving Lash ult, which is otherwise not possible. McGinnis doesn't really have any specific movement tech, but you can stand on her wall. I'm not really sure how useful this is, but it's possible, so there you go. Mina has the ability to float in the air if you hold down your aim in button. After about 4 seconds, she starts to glide downwards. Now there's a lot you can do with Mina's glide alone. However, she also has a movement tech related to her glide, that being velocity storage. Essentially, you're storing velocity and then getting a huge boost of downwards momentum, which you then transfer into a slide on a slope to translate that to horizontal velocity. A lot of word soup, I know, but it's pretty simple to actually do. To do it, you need to stall in the air above a slope whilst using Mina's glide, which can be done with wall bounces, dashes, and double jumps. Meaning, this tech gets even better with the purchase of Stand Mastery. Once you've stalled out enough, you will gain a huge burst of speed downwards, and so long as you're holding crouch and you're moving slightly towards the direction of the slope, you should get a huge burst of horizontal momentum in the direction that slope would normally slide you in. Mirage is a bit of a weird character. Whilst having movement adjacent options, he doesn't really have any tech as far as I'm aware, so we are instead going to talk about buying Echo Shard for his Tornado. Some would think this is troll, but because Tornado has 2 uses at max invest anyways, you can get 4 uses out of it with an Echo Shard, leading to an exceedingly annoying character to deal with for the enemies. Mo and Krill cannot mantle whilst in burrow. This is why many players buy Warpstone for Mo. Not only does it help hit ult, but it also lets you walk up to high ground whilst burrowed. With this said, Mo can mantle whilst entering or exiting burrow, so you can use this to gain high ground at the start or the end of the burrow. Paige is another anti-movement character in that she doesn't really have any tech to get her moving, but she can shut down enemies' movement very easily. Of course, many people are going to be aware of the fact that she has a root and that her ult stuns. However, you actually can knock flying characters out of the air or channel ults out of the air with Paige's ult if you aim it correctly. This can be annoying to do and it's very easy to waste your ult doing this, but it's also very funny if you hit it. Paradox gains a lot of speed when she uses her kinetic carbine, and as of a recent patch, she also, for some reason, gains dash distance as well. This can be used to make some basic tech a little better or easier and can help her with running away. Something to keep in mind though is that if you're moving with Paradox and decide to use Time Wall, it will stop all of the momentum that you previously had. This can be useful, but it can also be a detriment, so keep that in mind when using Wall. Pocket has a teleport, and a couple of teleports in this game function in a very interesting way. That is, they conserve your momentum when you use them. This means whenever Pocket uses Cloak, if you gain momentum in a direction in some way before the recast, you will keep that momentum after the recast. This is most notable when taking events. Ram's tagalong has a lot of interesting interactions. For one, you can use them on someone as they're getting hit by a Doorman ultimate to get dragged into the Baroness with them. But the thing we're talking about today is Warpstone. If you Warpstone whilst attached to someone, you will instantly teleport to the Warpstone location and will still gain the little jump that Ram does when exiting tagalong. This is relevant as Warpstone normally sets your velocity to 0, so the little jump gives Ram free velocity that other characters don't get. The distance you move is also buffed as all actives are buffed whilst Rem is in tagalong. If you crouch off a zipline as 7 and then use ult, you will instantly shoot into the skybox.
ごめん、あまない。俺は今、お前のために怒ってない。誰も憎んじゃいない。今はただただ。
I don't know why this happens, but I did some testing and there are some instances in which it will not. After you use the zipline and crouch, if you hit a dash or a wall bounce or both, nothing will happen. If you use ult, you'll still shoot into the skybox. However, if you hit a jump, be this on the ground or in the air, you will go back to a regular 7 ult. Also, if you touch the ground, you'll go back to a regular 7 ult. I am sure that everyone knows that Shiv has a unique movement option in his alternate fire. He can both use it to extend slides and to boost off walls. This works in a very specific way, and the timing can be a bit tricky to get down at first. If you want more guidance on Shiv's movement tech in specific, I've linked some resources down below to help you out. A fun fact about Shiv's movement tech though is that if you buy Burst Fire, you can do his alternate fire slide infinitely. Similarly to Calico, Silver has a dash. This dash allows her to gain height if needed, so you can use it to reach high ground for no stamina. This is possible in both of her forms, however it's technically better in the wolf form as her dash goes further. Sinclair, similarly to Pocket, has a teleport, and this is a teleport that allows him to conserve momentum. I think that Sinclair might be the easiest character to set up teleport momentum conservation with, because you just place your assistant somewhere and run off to an event or any other way of gaining momentum and press the teleport button. Your assistant doesn't move like a Pocket Cloak does. Similarly to Shiv's alternate fire, Venator's shotgun applies self-knockback. This means you can do a super wall bounce using Ven's shotgun in the same way you can with Shiv's right click. This wall bounce does use an ability with a cooldown though, so you shouldn't be using it all the time. However, it does give more distance than Shiv's as Venator's shotgun has higher self-knockback. Vindicta is kind of similar to Geist in the fact that I don't really think he has any movement tech. However, he does have a little bit more anti-movement synergy with both his ultimate and aura having built-in slows, with his ultimate also reducing dash speed. Vindicta can cancel her flight early to receive a huge boost of speed and height in the direction she was moving. To do this, you initiate the leap up part of her flight but cancel the ability before you're actually in flight. This is a great tool for escape, but bear in mind that your flight is on a long cooldown, so you can't rely on this tech to save you. Still worth knowing in a pinch. Viscous might be the character with the most character-specific tech in the game, as his abilities lend themselves really well to being used as movement tech. However, this is a video with one tech per character, so I'm only going to talk about one of them today, but just know Viscous could have his own video. The second I'm going to talk about is slope acceleration. Viscous's cube works in a very weird way in that it stores the normal of the last surface you touched. You don't actually need to know what this means, but basically, if you're on the ground, Viscous cube will move around in a way that you would expect. However, if you're in the air and your last touched surface was a slope, you will gain momentum in the direction of that slope as if you were sliding down it. To do this, simply use cube whilst in the air with your last grounded surface having been a slope, and you will accelerate through the air as though sliding down a slope. There are only a few select spots on the map where this is actually useful, and it uses a pretty important cooldown, so I'm not sure how practical this tech really is, but it does exist. Vyper has a unique slide in Deadlock, as it is linked to one of her abilities. This slide allows her to slide up slopes, and due to this, it means she can slide infinitely on specific parts of the map. For example, here. Warden has access to what I like to call the combo of Doom and Despair. He doesn't really have unique movement options himself, but he has one of the more annoying abilities in the game in the form of Cage, and Cage can combo with a lot of things, including your allies' abilities. Something you can do by yourself though is buy something like Knockdown. A lot of the time, people are going to be buying Counterspell or Dispel Magic to deal with your Cage, so you can do something I like to call the combo of Doom and Despair. You buy this item, Knockdown or something similar, to try and get them to proc their Dispel Magic or Counterspell. You can then use Cage for free. Alternatively, if they don't counterbuy you, it's even better, as you can use the knockdown to deny them from leaving the cage in the first place. I'm not saying this is practical for a real match, but you will ruin people's day. You can also buy Slowing Hex as an early buy if you're into particularly mobile lanes to bully them even harder before you get your max cage. Wraith's teleport is similar to Warpstone in that it normally removes all momentum at the ending point. However, if you teleport close enough to a zipline, you can hold your zipline mount button as the teleport is going on to instantly enter the zipline upon the teleport ending. Every Yamato player under the sun knows exactly what I'm going to talk about as the movement tech for Yamato, but if you don't play her or you're new, then this might be news to you. Yamato can cancel her grapple early and retain her momentum, which means she can slingshot herself past her target. You may be wondering how this is useful, as normally if you want to get away, you want to go in the other direction. However, Yamato can grapple jungle creeps, so you can use this tag to escape an otherwise sticky situation if there's a camp nearby. And that about does it for today's video. If you enjoyed, feel free to subscribe. We're getting really close to 1k and that would be a cool milestone to hit. I also have a second channel where I just talk about whatever's on my mind each day, so if that interests you then feel free to check it out. Comment down below what you want to see from me next, but I'm thinking of potentially doing some lore/fun fact videos, so let me know if that sounds good and I'll see you guys in the next one.